Chapter 1. Use diagram and drawing. Not all problems come with graphical illustration. Drawing a picture can help you visualize the situation and may reveal things that are subtle or easily misunderstood by just reading the problem. Remember to keep the drawing simple and to the point. It's not about art, it's about solving problems. Use symbols and label the parts to your best knowledge. Drawing to scale can sometimes help you feel what the answer may look like. Perhaps the length of this part looks like it's twice the length of this other part, or the area looks like it's less than 10 square units. The diagram can also help you to keep track of your process and findings. As you work along the problem, a lot of times you may write down your new findings and add on top of the diagram to give you a better visualization of the problem and finally lead you to the solution. Now let's take a look at an example here. There are 8 basketball teams competing in a tournament for championship. They play in the single elimination, in which loser of each game will be out and winner will continue to play. How many games would a champion team have to play? First of all, try to understand this problem and think about what kind of diagram can help you solve the problem. Okay, we are talking about 8 basketball teams. So this is information that you want to be aware of. So then that's the only number that appears in this problem. Okay, so using that information, we can draw 8 teams. We can just use something very simple to represent the teams. For instance, I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams represented by the dots. And I know that each 2 teams will compete and a winner will come out from each game. So I'm going to pair up 2 teams and find a winner. So after first game, only 4 teams remains. Now these 4 teams, they will continue to play against another one. So after second round, there will be only 2 teams left. And these 2 teams will continue to play to decide who the champion is. So do you see that in this problem, we use a very simple diagram to illustrate that there are 1 round of game, 2 rounds of game, and 3 rounds of game. So whichever team the champion team is from the original teams here, they're going to play 1 game here, 1 game here, and 1 game here. So the answer to this problem is the champion team have to play a total of 3 games. So that's the answer. Here's another example. A dog is tied to the corner of a square hut by a rope which is 8 meters long. I'm just trying to underline the important information here. And the hut measures 6 meters on each side. What is the area the dog can wander outside of the hut? Express your answer in terms of pi. So we are dealing with a square hut. So let's do the square hut first. Okay, so the hut will look something like this. And make sure we label to our best knowledge. So 6 by 6. And the dog is tied by a rope which is 8 meters long. So 8 is a little bit longer than the 6. So make sure you draw things to the scale. Now let's take a look at how the dog can wander around. So the dog is limited by the rope. So it can go like this. It can also go like that. Alright, however, make sure that when the dog gets here, now you don't just continue. Look, you can tell this is like a circular shape, but just don't keep going like this, okay? Now let me draw up the circular shape first, and I'll illustrate this point. Something like that. Okay, now why did I not continue to draw up here? Because at this point the rope is only 2 meters free, so the dog can only go in another circular shape. So this part will more or less look like this, using my best drawing on a tab like this. And this part, again, it will be another part of a circle that's like this. Good. And let's label the parts. This part is 2 because there's a diameter of this circle here. This circle has the diameter of the radius of 2, and so is this circle that is also with a diameter of 2. The radius of 2. Okay, so the area that the dog can wander is actually this portion of the circle plus this portion of the circle plus this portion of the circle. So let's work it out. Okay, I just labeled these two parts. Part A, which belongs to a bigger circle, and part B, which is this part plus this part. So let's figure out what part A is. Part A is 3/4 of a circle. So 3/4, and the circle's area is pi r squared, so times pi. Now the r is 8 meters. So that is equal to, I have some tricks to do this though. You see that I have 2 factors of 8 here, so I'm going to take 1/8 and to cancel out with this 4, so I will have 3, and this 4 will be gone, it becomes a 1. So I'll have 3, and then another 8, and then this other 8 already becomes a 2. So the answer to this part is 48 pi. Okay, so let's work on part B. Part B is the sum of 2 identical parts, so it's 2 times, and then I'm going to do this quarter circle area. So 1/4, again I have pi r squared for the circle, but this time the radius is 2. So I can easily take this 2 and cancel with this 4. I still have a 2 here, but I can cancel with 1 factor in here. So I will end up with 2 pi. Okay? So the area the dog can wander is A plus B, which is 48 pi plus 2 pi, that many square meters, which equals to 50 square meters, and that is the answer to this problem. Now pause the video and try this problem on your own. Okay, let's see how we can solve this problem. A carpenter can cut a log into 4 pieces along its length in 12 minutes. How long will it take him to cut a log into 8 pieces? Now, some people would just jump into the conclusion almost right away when they see these words like 4 pieces, 12 minutes. They would quickly jump into conclusion that, oh, each piece must take 3 minutes to obtain. And so I'm going to multiply to 8 and get 24 minutes. But this is wrong. Why? We can show it with a diagram. So let's draw a log, something very simple. So this is our log. And it's cut into 4 pieces. So One cut here, one cut here, and one cut here. Do you see how many cuts the carpenter made to the log? It only takes 3 cuts to cut the log into 4 pieces, which means each cut will actually take 4 minutes. And now I have a log that I want to cut it into 8 pieces. So I'm going to cut it into 8 pieces. So how many cuts do I need to make 8 pieces? You see that we need 7 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 cuts. But remember that each cut is 4 minutes. So 7 cuts is 7 times 4. So the answer is 28. So it takes the carpenter 28 minutes to cut the log into 8 pieces. So let me add the label back in here. And I can just add minutes down here. I need to match the labels too, okay? So that concludes this practice. The answer is 28 minutes. That's our answer. Here's another practice problem. A fenced rectangular garden is 10 meter by 20 meter. The garden is enlarged by moving one side outward and the other 2 sides increased in length. The area is increased by 40 square meters. What is the fewest additional fencing needed to form the enlarged garden? Now pause the video and try it out. When you are ready, resume it. Okay, so we have a rectangular garden, so let's draw up the garden first. Okay, I just drew up the garden, and the tricky part here is this garden's dimension is 20 meters by 10 meters. So we want to make sure this side looks like it's twice as long as this side, because sometimes the drawing, if it's drawn up to scale, it will help you to see the answer or to see if the answer is reasonable. Okay, but something that this problem doesn't tell us is which side we're going to move the fence outward. Are we going to move this way or this way? So let's try out both situations. So if we're going to move out this way, then we will be getting something like that. Okay, and we have an increase of 40 square meters. That's the area. Now remember that this part is 10. So 10 times this dimension here is 40. So that tells us that this part has to be 4 meters long. That's one way to enlarge the garden. However, there's another way to enlarge the garden, which is going this way, going down. So I'm going to use a different color to illustrate that. We can also increase the garden like that. And again, this part is 40, but this 40 comes from this additional fence times this side, which is 20. So 20 times this has to be a 2 to get you 40. Now, so what is the additional fence that we need? If we increase like this, then we need 4 plus 4. However, we are asked to find the fewest. This is the keyword here, the fewest additional fencing. So we're going to go with this way of enlarging the garden. So the additional fencing needed is 2 meters plus 2 meters, which is 4 meters. And that's the solution. Here are some homework for you to try out. Although there are always more than one way to solve problems, you are encouraged to use what you learned in this lesson to solve them, which is using diagram and picture and drawing, because this will help you master the skill. So pause the video When you are ready, move on for the solutions. Here comes the solutions. I hope you have great time learning problem solving. Don't forget to check out my other videos on other problem solving strategies. Goodbye.